to do this type of care, to be a charitable person, to give your time, your money, like the explanation that I gave. Imagine the story. The person says, you know, he paid everything. He paid all her bills and everything. He never gave himself a dime. He must have worked 20 hours a week for her. He never, I don't know how he does it. Well, yes, we know how he does it. He does it with charity. He does it with love. That's how he does it. Okay? So this is what we're called to do. We can't right now do very much about this worldwide mentality that is against fertility, that is against life, that is causing death remedies to be passed by countries, legislatures all over the world, judges, all these people. They're all crazy for death. They think that there's a remedy and an answer for death. There isn't. But we're people of life and the culture of life, okay? So I've given you some things to think about. What have we talked about? How to handle palliative care, okay? To a certain extent, we've talked about that, because most of the time palliative care is morphine.
Yes.
There's no doubt about that. It's morphine. And if it's heavy doses of morphine, they'll be gone very quickly.
Yes.
Palliative care is a light dose of morphine. And if you're in a situation where somebody's receiving morphine, don't be afraid to ask, how much are you giving them? It's your business. It's your family. The person would expect you. Give him a little dose. He's got some pain. Give him a little dose. You can knock a person, they're gone in an hour sometimes, and they hit them too hard. Everybody's experiencing that. Palliative care is morphine. That's what it is, mostly. All right, sedation, comfort. Okay. The other thing that we hear about a lot is compassion. We as Catholics own compassion. We own compassion. We're the masters of compassion. We built the hospitals and built the care. Okay, that's what we need to do in these situations, is show the Catholic way of compassion, which is the true way. We'll fight for their life till the end, want them to have good care and healthy care, and we want them to die a natural death. That's what we want, a natural death. That's what the church teaches. So we have to follow that as best we can. There's nothing perfect in any of this, okay? Because when you're dealing with palliative care, you're dealing with morphine, you're dealing with people on the sick bed and what have you. These are not the easiest situations, okay? I'm going to open it up now to questions so we can exchange our ideas. And I'm sure Evelyn will tell me what I forgot to say, and I'll go and talk about that. Question? Yes?
An experience before where a friend of mine has 1/3 of his brain working as according to the doctors. For that doctor shouldn't be giving this fractions of brain activity, but to me there is life, and he woke up from the coma and he's alive right now.
These stories there are tons of these stories. They talk about the being locked in a room. Has anybody heard of that syndrome, locked in the room syndrome? That's when they're in a coma and they're locked in a room and they can't get out, but they know you're out there and they can hear you. They can hear you talking about them. They can hear you talking about the football game and the Raiders and everything. When everybody's just shooting the bull and you're in the hospital, they can't get out. They're stuck. Okay? They're imprisoned in their body, but their humanity, their spirit, their intellect. And why is that? I'm going to tell you why, okay? And I learned this at the Dominican School of Philosophy and Theology. So if you asked me this 3 years ago, I wouldn't know the answer. But now I know the answer. Praise God. Okay, here's the reason. Going back to Plato, going back to Aristotle, going back to Thomas Aquinas, the church always believed that the intellect is a spirit. The intellect is a spirit. That's what the church always believed. Augustine, everything. Church is a spirit. So, the intellect is a spirit. So what does that mean? Well, that means that we have our senses. The see, you can see, right? You can hear. You can touch. You can taste. You can hear, you can see. 5 senses. And those gather all of the information. And it goes into the intellect. And then the intellect goes into the memory. And then they have a little cognitive sense, kind of like the librarian keeps track of everything. Okay. So what else is there? Well, there's the intellect and the free will. The free will is also a spirit. So when a person is trapped in this room and they can't get out because they're in a coma, Their intellect is a spirit, so it's not trapped. It just happens to be caught up in this person's world. It can't leave that person. The person cannot express itself because the senses are shut off. The senses are shut off, but the spirit's still going, and they can hear and everything like that. So the point of it is they might say something to you if they ever wake up. Be careful, right? What you say in front of these people. Be careful, right? And the way they talk and everything, because there are examples of this. So this lady gives an example of how somebody's brain was half dead, and then they woke up. It's a great story. Thank you very much for sharing that. But this is a common story. More and more, God is using these examples to say, hey, I created you, and nobody else can get rid of you. Nobody else can take your life. That life I've breathed into you myself. I'm very proud of you people that I made. Let me take care of it. So, other questions?
I just wanted to clarify about the pulse. It's physician orders for treatment and life-sustaining. It is a contract between the physician and the patient.
Yes.
It's not just the physicians ordering it.
Yes,
So
but
it is a contract. That's why we encourage the people and the patients when they're still cognitive.
But the problem is, it's very, okay, but let me respond. Okay, but let me respond to you. One of the criticisms that we read about in the literature and everything like that is that people are in this situation and then they're suddenly confronted with this and they're supposed to predict what they want to have done or what will be done in a hypothetical sense, right?
And that's why you have to develop that contract between when you're still able to. So it's not that contract is done when the patient is not with cognitive decision. That will be able to say, okay, I want it when I become...
Did you bring one with you? I should have brought one with you.
Yeah,
Can you pull one up on the email? It would be good to look at it because...
Yeah, because he has the section where...
Yeah, you know, I mean, the problem that I have I'm against it completely. I know most of these organizations, the pro-life groups for the church are against it. But she's a professional nurse and I respect her opinion and I'm sure she's doing a great job. And that wonderful, we're lucky to have her as a part of that. But there are areas where you have to fill it out and that sort of thing. And I think people who are amateurs, basically, with dealing with professionals, and she's a professional and doctors are professionals, and you have to be careful with that. But anyway, she's going to pull one up.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, other questions? Yes?
Not a question, but this is an experience we had with regards to my wife's sister-in-law who was in the hospital. And she was being asked whether she could take palliative care because she can no longer stay in the hospital, this terminal illness, or go back to a home care type situation. And the nurse advised us that if you take palliative care, if there's an emergency, you can no longer bring the patient back to the hospital. They're basically on their own. All the care will be, and the comfort care will be provided, but no emergency treatment at all. You've forgone, if you choose that care, is that true?
Oh yeah, I mean I had a situation about 2 weeks ago where somebody was told that feeding tube should be taken out, all right? And the person said, no, I want the feeding tube. This person had a power of attorney for health care and said, no, I want the feeding tube to stay out, okay? But if you leave the hospital and you're discharged, the patient's discharged, don't bring the patient back for a problem with their health, with their feeding tube, because we won't treat her. Okay? So that was the hospital, and I was involved in that situation. And what do you think about that?
No, it's not, because I had just lost a patient who's 30 years old last week. We put her on comfort care. The family changed their mind. She was on a nursing home, changed their mind. We accepted the patient. The patient died with dignity on
Good.
with the family around,
Awesome.
with the Bible in there,
Awesome.
with everybody in there.
Awesome.
So it is, I mean, it is not that we denied help. I mean,
Well, the situation that I was involved in, they most certainly denied it. They told the person they were going to deny it. And in your situation?
They said that she will not be accepted back in an event because she already has accepted palliative care at that point. I mean, there's an enticement or sort of, because they said they'll provide you with everything that you need.
At home.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can't come back to the
But you
hospital.
cannot
Yeah.
come back.
Yeah, I had a similar experience to the same thing. Any other questions? Yes?
Kind of my question is about, at what point would you consider it to be dying naturally, and at what point you would say it's being maintained naturally? And I think what you were saying is that for as long as the person can receive nutrition and hydration, we should prolong it. We should not, so to speak, pull the plug. But when the person can no longer take either nutrition or hydration or both, is that the point where in maintaining that person would be artificial? Or
I would think so, yeah. If the person cannot receive the nutrition, meaning their organs cannot receive it, they can't deal with it, they can't digest it.
Okay, so your
Well,
suggestion is we prolong it, we don't pull the plug for as long as they can receive hydration and nutrition.
well, your hypothetical, I don't understand completely, but what I think you're saying is it okay not to try and give somebody nutrition and hydration when they're not able to receive it? And the answer is yes.
Well, because we have a case, one of our brothers actually, when the wife came back from the Philippines, she went into a coma, and they could never understand why, but she went into a coma.
How old was she?
I suspect she was about 65 or something.
Okay, so pretty young.
She was in a coma for months.
Ah.
Until they ran out of money, they sold things, because the husband made the decision that he was going to
Yeah.
continue with it for as long as possible. So,
Did they live in Concord?
yeah,
Yeah.
you know.
That's a very difficult situation, very difficult situation, because you have the depletion of assets, you just have an incredible burden and a hardship there. But the person made a decision, and that person, I assume, in your situation, had the power of attorney to decide for his wife what he thought was the best for her, and so he made that decision. It's a difficult one. I'm not going to
So
second
we
guess
don't know
this.
really at what point.
Well, all of these are different. They're all a unique situation. There are general rules, and the church teaches you about the general rules. Don't take a human life. That's the first one. That's the main one. Don't take human life. Don't let that happen. Don't let that mentality come. And the mentality is definitely in the public policy of the countries we're living in the Western world. Other questions? Yes.
Well, I have an experience that I want to share. It's like my own mother. She's a breast cancer survivor for 25 years and a heart transplant, total heart transplant for 15 years. And before that incident happened, her organs are failing because the nurses that works here, you guys know that the immunosuppressant medication for transplant patient, it has a long-term effect. So your transplant would work, but the long end was your organs are failing. So her request, like I said, what you said earlier, the statement you made is like, let them die with dignity. When she knew the doctor had a conference with us and told us straight up that her organs are failing, the kidneys like 5%, and then the liver also. So we knew it's just a matter of time. Then my mom had asked me, "Can you do this with me?" And like you said, as a Catholic, we had that responsibility. And at that time, I wasn't. I felt like because I just had a heart issue also at the time. I had a stroke, and then but I recovered from it. But I think it's like the Lord telling me, because I work full time. But at that time, I was out on disability, and then that incident happened. And 6 days she was in palliative care, but very minimum of morphine. But she even knew that day, that 6th day, she asked me, is that 6 in the morning or 6 at night? And I said, no, 6 in the morning. And she passed away at 12. And she knew that day that was the day, because as all of us here, when they're dying, they see our relatives and stuff. She's talking to me about people that are around. And then she told me, as soon as she saw the clock, the 12 noon, she said, "It's time." And within 2 hours, she passed away. And then she told me, "Hold me in my, hold me until I go." And that was the very hard thing for me to do, because like I kind of synchronized breath with her until the last breath. I know one of the sisters here shared that, seeing them with their last breath, it was hard. And then it was hard for me because she died in my lap.
Yeah.
So I remember like the Pieta with the Blessed
Yeah.
Mother.
Yeah.
And then when the last breath, the third breath, like her sister had mentioned, the very deep breath,
Yeah.
then she let go. And because at 12 she told me, "I'm afraid," and I said, "No." Father Pompey was one of our friend priests, and he was there those 6 days. He come there every day and pray with us, like you said. It's a good thing to do, and it's healthy for the family
It's awesome.
to gather, and I experienced that myself.
I enjoy going to the homes when people are really sick, and I enjoyed that part of my practice. I really did. And to visit with them and bring them Lourdes water, I used to do that, and things like that, little things. And visit with the family to give them strength to help. So they bring charity to the situation. Okay, other questions? Thank you very much. Yes?
So if you want to do this kind of charity service
Yes.
to these people
Yes.
that you don't know, how do you get in touch with whom so you could volunteer to do some things like
Do you belong to a parish?
yes?
Does your parish have a Legion of Mary?
I'm not too sure.
The Legion of Mary is very strong at home visitation, hospital visitation, and visiting people, and they are very good, and they kind of self-train one another on what their role is and how they fit into the hospital scene and in the nursing care scene and all of that, their place. And that's a very effective ministry that's in your parish. If you don't have a Legion of Mary, find one that's in nearby parish and join it and scope with that. But thank you very much for asking. Other questions? Yes.
A dying person who wants to,
What person?
dying person.
Okay, I thought you said in Italian. Same thing he said.
A dying person who wants to donate part of his organ
Yeah.
against the church, or do they?
Well, the church is not against that. If you want to donate your organs. No, I don't think there's a problem with that.
The bad thing is they kill you before.
Yeah, what is not right is, when they kill you to get your organs. That's bad. Be careful for that, too. There's money in that, as we've learned. Other questions? Yes?
Another, from experience, the hardest thing to decide is when to pull the respirator
Yes.
out, because doctors tell you that's the only one the only equipment that is keeping the patient alive, and so we asked for spiritual direction at that point, because it's such a hard decision, and we needed some comfort in taking that step of pulling that respirator, disconnecting the respirator. And true enough, in a short moment, because the patient can no longer breathe on her own, you see them die. That is hard as well, because you were part of that sort of decision process. But the consolation is, when you seek spiritual direction, you're comforted in that you did the right thing, even though the effect is the death of a loved one.
Yeah, thank you. These personal testimonies are very helpful. Anybody else has personal testimony or questions? Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question. I would like to share this with my brothers and sisters.
Sure.
Because the person involved is a sister. And her daughter was 16 years old, was stricken by a rare disease. And the only reason I got involved because I tried to help with the expert from UCSF. Anyway, make a long story short, she went in a coma. And the doctor said she was clinically dead, that if she ever wakes up, she'll be like a vegetable. So everyone was trying to encourage the mother to make